You're listening to the Play Therapy Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks, your source for centered and focused play therapy coaching.
Hi, I'm Dr. Brenna Hicks, the Kid Counselor. This is the Play Therapy Podcast, where you get a masterclass in child-centered play therapy and practical support and application for your work with children and their families. In today's episode, we are live, which is a very exciting moment for me. So thank you to all of you who are here. And we are talking about impact today. One of the things that I think is something that we all want is impact. I don't think we do this job if we are not wired to want to make an impact with other people and in the world. And I think that the beauty of what we do is we are often not in a position to have an existential crisis. So let me explain what I mean by that. I think many people hit a point in their lives where they start to say, is this really what I'm meant to do? Is this making a difference in the lives of other people? You know, if you're an accountant, or if you are an IT person, or if you're some other kind of job, I think that many people reach a point where they start to wonder if this is truly what they meant to do and what makes them happy. We never have that. I don't think we ever reach a point where we say, I don't think I'm making a difference. I don't think that I have impact. But here's what I think. Because we're wired to be givers and servers and helpers, I also think that we often don't see beyond the immediate, because we know that we're giving and we know that we're serving and we know that we're helping. So interestingly, I think sometimes that gets in our way. And one of the things that I've worked a lot on when I coach is helping people grasp this concept of the amount of impact that they want to have. And that's what we're diving into today. Let's backstory though. So often I think that we settle for being overworked and underpaid and drained and stressed and burned out. And we've come to accept that as, quote, part of our job. And I've had so many therapists say to me, well, I didn't go into this career to make good money. Or, well, if I wanted to get rich, I never would have pursued therapy. And I understand where that's coming from, but I also think that to have the impact that we want, we have to give out of the overflow. So one of the things that we have to start kind of rewiring for ourselves is this conditioned response that we are okay with settling. Because I think when we settle, that means that our desire for impact also settles. So we're going to kind of process that. Since this is early 2025, when we think about this next coming year and everything that this next 12 months are going to bring, one of the things that I think is one of the most powerful components is the level of impact that we want. In other words, we know that we're impacting our clients. We know we're impacting those families. But what about beyond that? Where are the degrees of impact that we can have beyond just the work that we're doing clinically? Not that that's not important. Let me be really clear. The work that we do, you know, I think about the starfish analogy. There's the story, I don't know if you all know that story, but there's someone walking on the beach throwing starfish back into the ocean, and someone comes up alongside of him or her and says, why are you wasting your time? There's thousands of starfish on this beach. Why are you wasting your time? And the person says, well, it mattered for that one. Okay, so I know the world is big, and I know there are kids hurting all over the world in the millions. It's not to undermine the impact that you have with that one client that's in your playroom at that given hour. That's so important. And the impact is tangible for that child and that family. And I've often thought about that. I'm going on a side turn here for a second, but I've often thought about that. My very first client ever, Jacob is his name, by the way, my very first client ever was in 2005. And he reached out recently to my office, looked me up, found me, reached out, is now 27. Does that not blow your mind? Oh my gosh. He's 27 and says, I'm starting work with a psychologist, and my psychologist was wondering if I could have records from my mental health treatment. And, you know, we were wondering if you had any records from when I worked with you. And we keep records for 7 years, so I didn't even have records anymore. But the point is, he reached out and I thought, he's 27 and he remembers coming to play with me. He remembers my name. He looked me up. The impact that we have in every single one of these kids' lives, it's incredible. The relationship that is built persists. And I've had a lot of therapists come and say, I only got to see that kid for four sessions. I only got to see that kid for 2 months. This happened, this happened, this happened. I didn't get to finish treatment with that kid. And I wonder what that meant for that kid. I wonder what impact that might have had. And I always say, for that hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours that child was with you, they'll never forget it. So we know we have impact. And I think we celebrate that. I think we are proud of that. Yet, what can we do to work toward higher levels of impact? And one of the things that I think about a lot, and one of the things that I focus on is, how do we scale that? So we know we have client impact. We know we have family impact. We know we have community impact. The community in which you work, you impact them. And that's a gift to you and to them. But what about in your state or in your region or in your province, your territory, your country? What about a little bit bigger? What about the impact you might want to have on the field at large? What kind of impact do you want to have as a play therapist? What impact do you want to have on children's therapy as a whole? Maybe outside of the play therapy arena. What impact do you want to have within child-centered play therapy? What impact do you want to have globally? And impact has a lot of paths, right? Because it can be impact professionally. I want to have multiple centers that serve hundreds of families. I want to have, clinical impact in all of these different capacities. But sometimes it's the ability to have personal impact. Sometimes it's something that's really important to you, that really matters to you. For me, I taught English in Honduras, and there is a deep, deep, special place in my heart for Honduras. There always will be. So when I think impact, when I think global, it almost always goes there. What do I want to do for the country of Honduras? What do I want to do for the people of Honduras? And there's this sense of, we have to give out of the overflow. If we are depleted, if we have nothing left in our tanks, if our cups are empty, we have no impact because there's nothing there. So when we don't take care of ourselves, when we get burned out, when we let stress take over, when we get overworked, when we're struggling to pay our bills because we accept the fact that we're going to be poor to do this work, it's really just a hindrance to the impact that we can have. So I'd like you, as you kind of envision this year and the impact that you might have, I'd like you to start thinking about yourself as a person of impact. If that can become part of your self-description, your narrative, when you talk about yourself and when you think about yourself, if you can start thinking and saying out loud, I'm a person of impact, it's going to rewire everything. And why I love that is because what we say about ourselves, there's a self-fulfilling prophecy component there. So when we say, I'm a person of impact, we will become a person of impact. And I know often when we think big like that, it's like, oh my gosh, I have no idea how I'll ever get there. I have no idea what that will look like. I have no idea how to conceive of whatever it is that big goal or dream is. But here's what I know. When you dream big and you write it down and you make it known, it has a way of getting you closer to it. And often what happens is the impact that you want, or the dream that you have, or the vision that you cast, when it finally is realized, it's not exactly what you thought it was going to be in the first place. There's almost always a deviation. There's almost always a shift, but it's still powerful. And often what started as, this is kind of where I want to go with this, it blossoms into something completely different. And most of the time it's better. So when you dream big, you have to have a plan. And I know this is a little bit more of like a pep talk episode rather than a clinical episode, but I think as CCPTs, We have this very unique opportunity and this very unique platform to think about ourselves as a person of impact and tangibly do something to have that unfold in front of us. So the way my brain works is I reverse engineer things. So if I say, by the end of 2025, I want to have local craftsmen in Honduras making toys so that every child in a Honduran orphanage has their own toy and they don't have to share. That is actually one of my goals for impact, by the way. I didn't make that up. If I have that in my head, by the end of 2025, this is what I want, you reverse engineer your year. So what quarterly do I need to do to make sure that I'm moving in that direction? So every 3 months, what does that look like? Then what do I need to do monthly within the quarter to have that a little bit closer to the goal? And then what do I need to do weekly to make sure that I'm hitting my monthly goals? All of a sudden now your massive dream, this view of impact that you think you might want to have, it's more broken down in tangible steps. And the beauty of that is it doesn't seem so big and overwhelming and daunting anymore. So your impact is very closely linked to taking one small step. But you have to have the vision first, and you have to have the idea of impact. I've had so many therapists say, I want to serve a specific population in my community that I feel is underserved. I want to partner with parents in the community to make sure that we have community-wide change. I want to offer parenting programs in libraries and schools and whatever. Many CCPTs lately have been telling me they want to get teachers on board with CCPT principles. And if we can influence the education system with what we're doing, it has massive impact. So there's all of this clinical stuff, but then there's all of this personal stuff. What fires you up? What excites you? What is something you're passionate about? What is something that you can't seem to let go of? It just always has a hold of you in some way. That's another way you can have impact. And I think that when we start thinking in those terms, I think that it helps us not be satisfied with just doing therapy. And just doing therapy is enough. Let me just make that very clear. If all we ever do is CCPT for our whole career, we've made huge impact. Yet, I think there's more that we have to offer. And I think there's more that we can do. And I think there's more we can contribute to the field. And if you set yourself up in this next year to take these tangible steps, it gets you closer to the impact that you want to have. And impact comes long term. So you may not see it realized right away, but we're working toward it all the while. And I think that that inspires us. It encourages us. It gives us a why. The why matters, right? It gives us a why. We're always going back to, why am I working to do this? Why am I working to make more money? Why am I working to provide for my family better? Why am I working to increase my client load? Why am I working to brand and get a website and market myself better? Because if you don't have money, you don't have impact. You have to be able to have tangible income. Look, doing good in the world costs money. It would be wonderful if every charitable act was free and at no cost. But anything that you do for the good of others, it costs money. We can give and serve, and that just costs our time. But to have any significant levels of impact, it costs money. There's operating costs, there's products you have to buy, there's all kinds of things associated with it, and we give out of the overflow. So we have to make sure that we ourselves are at a place where we have overflow, and we have to make sure that we have financial overflow. And then we take our skills and our talents and our passions and what matters to us, and we pour them into these big dreams of impact. And guess what? The world's a better place for it. So there's your early January 2025 pep talk. I hope that it inspires you. I hope that you start to think about yourself in terms of, I'm a person of impact, and I know the good that I can do in the world. And you start one step at a time making that happen. All right, super grateful for this event. Thank you for being here. For those of you who are listening, thank you for spending time with me each week. You know how much I love you. We'll talk again soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Play Therapy Podcast with Dr. Brenna Hicks. For more episodes and resources, please go to www.playtherapypodcast.com.